Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action in the British Basketball League this weekend. And it wouldn't be a BBL weekend without a Bristol home game, it seems.
No.
They play every week at home.
I think I should correct you though. I think it's Sunday evening breakdown tonight, isn't
Well,
it?
it is, yeah, Sunday evening
We have the,
breakdown.
we have the antithesis of the 5:30 triumvirate.
Yeah.
Like everybody goes home after Plymouth finish at 3 o'clock. It's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So Bristol. They've almost played half their schedule, and we're not even in December. Their home schedule. This was their 8th home game, but they won 78-73. So they're 7-1 in those 8 home games as well. So pretty good record for it. Mahan out. First start for Watson Gale, and well, Bristol didn't get a single offensive rebound in the first 4 minutes, so obviously they were behind. Oh no, wait, they went 6 for 6 and were 14-0 up. How does that work?
VJ
But,
King.
indeed. Well, Ben Thomas made a triple substitution after 2.5 minutes, then called a team timeout after 3.5 minutes. But VJ King had 10 points on the board before Cheshire scored.
Yeah, I mean it's the interesting thing is that VJ King is playing the 4 spot. Is and Mahan coming out, and they actually go even smaller when Watson Gale goes in the game as a starter. Now that means that you have this kind of ability early on to influence a game because you have a significant quickness advantage at the 4 spot. Because I think it was Teague and Neighbour or Ocherobi, I can't remember which one because they're toggling them at the moment. But either one, King is pretty comfortable. He's an ex-G League player who, played the 3 in the G League. So he's extremely comfortable outside, stepping back, shooting the 3s that we see in the NBA nowadays, and also getting to the rim. And in the meantime, the guy that, who's a perfect matchup for King, for Cheshire, is obviously Jamal Anderson, but he's kind of playing the 3 spot. So if he picks up King, then somebody else has to pick up one of the really small guys like Miller or Ollison or Watson Gale. So that can't really happen. So the small for big thing made a difference for Bristol early, and that's it's the advantage of having so many guards that you can plug in, that you can keep that kind of system the way it was. But also, you could have played Thomas Bell in there, and he didn't. Thomas Bell came off the bench, so it could have gone a bit bigger with Bell, Delpesh, and King at the 3, and didn't do that. And yeah, we've seen it a few times this season in games now. Cheshire have done it to a couple of teams as well at home, whereby teams have just not been ready to play on the road. And Cheshire, I think, had Jack starting. I might be wrong.
No, he came in. He was one of the triple subs that came on. Yeah.
And he gave them something because he gave them that extra kind of athletic body that you need at Bristol as well. And he's kind of stepped up a little bit. But no, I mean, they are the ultimate feast or famine, aren't they?
Yeah,
they
well,
really are.
They were feasting in the first half of the first quarter, and they were 20-5 up with King making his third 3, and then they went into famine mode, Bristol, because Cheshire had 16 of the next 17 points in the quarter, finished 21-21, which was bonkers given that Bristol had scored the first 14.
Yeah, and I mean, it actually continued on in the second quarter as well, because I remember at some point in the second quarter, probably about 5 or 6 minutes in, thinking that Bristol hadn't made a field goal that wasn't a fast break for about like the length of the game, for about since halfway through the first quarter.
It was. I've got it here because Jack was scoring well early in the second quarter as well. They led 23-32. So in 10 minutes and 10 seconds, it went from 20-5 to 23-32. And as you say, one was a fast break layup and one was a free throw of the 3 that they scored.
Yeah, so the half court basically just dissipated, deteriorated, disastrified, whatever D word you want to think about. It just fell off a cliff. And but Cheshire handled the boards well enough and looked after the ball well enough, whereby Bristol couldn't get anything particularly much cheap. Cheshire are very systematic now. They all kind of know their roles. They've probably got a ceiling, but I'm not quite sure how high it is at this point. They probably need Jack and Daniels to step up to kind of extend their ceiling upwards. We haven't, we kind of know what Daniels is. We're not sure what Jack is at the minute because he's shown some encouraging signs, you would say.
Yeah.
Looking like a kind of a prototype BBL3, knockdown shots, get to the rim, attack and transition, that type of thing. But other than that, they're kind of a little bit one pace, Bristol. If they're not turning you over, Cheshire, if they're not turning you over at the other end, they're not going fast out, that they're running their stuff down the court. They're not looking that quickly. And that means you get into a situation where you have to make shots, and you have to make shots consistently. And that's where, Will Neighbour comes in, Teague comes in, and Anderson comes in. And they're the three guys who, if they make shots and they help off, so they help off the attention that Evans and Austin are getting. And if those guys are able to knock down shots, then they're a very tough team to beat. However, they can just as easily, it can be 5 or they can be 4 or 5, and that can be the difference in the game. And that's a tough thing, because it means that you're kind of going to be hovering around shooting variance on how well you play, and whether you're in games and whether you win games. And that kind of happened in this game. I thought Bristol, because they got off to the start, they bought themselves some time. Then they got a little bit in transition going at the end of the second quarter, and then they just get to come out again and start flying around again.
Well, if we spin it forward to the end, so the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter, Knicks had 10 in a row. Ollison got a 4th foul on a chase down block attempt. His reaction got him a 5th foul on a technical, and it's 52-62 after the free throws from that, with 9:17 to go in the game. Go on.
I've just remembered as well, the first bit of eccentric refereeing of the weekend, halfway through the first quarter, I think it was the first quarter, second quarter, Larry Austin subbed in, dared to sub in.
Yeah.
A second before a ref had signalled a foul. And he was almost kind of
shoved back, wasn't he?
Back. It was Greco-Roman wrestle. The referee back to the bench. Everybody's kind of looking, what's going on here? Well, as the foul was signalled, then he walked in again.
It happened a couple of times in the Leicester game as well that I was doing, where somebody got sent back and said, "Wait till you're told to come in."
I don't mind people being sent back, but it's like, physically, you shouldn't be physically getting anywhere near a player. That can cause all sorts of stuff down the line. So I thought that was a bit bizarre. I know Ben Thomas was saying something. I just wish I knew what he was saying, because I was quite entertained by it. But I thought that was just, you don't. If you're the ref, you've got to be above that. You've got to be above the chaos. You got, we go back. That's it. That's all it takes. If he doesn't go back, give him a technical. It's easy. You don't referee. You can't referee the game, physically at all, ever. So that was a bit bizarre. Then so Ollison got. He must have said something, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, there was a bit of a sort of reaction to it, and it was also Keith Williams, which I can't remember what your description of him was, but interventional.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of. I'm generally not a fan of technicals immediately after a player thinks he's got a bad call.
Yeah.
Unless a player has done something which is so clearly beyond the pale or embarrassed the referee. There's a couple more this weekend as well, which we'll come on to. And because the reason I'm not a fan of them isn't because maybe they shouldn't be technicals. It's because all the refs are so different.
Yeah.
It's because what is a horrendous slight to one referee, another one will make sure he's not looking. And will not call it. And it's not necessarily, and as coaches, you kind of learn over the years, and you're there, who you're dealing with and what you have to do. But it shouldn't be that. It really should be. There should be a level of consistency in relation to that. And having watched all the games, and obviously we get the advantage of watching all the games, I don't see that consistency. I see things happen. Think, that's a technical, and he's not called it. And then I see something else happening. That's not a technical. And so it comes down to a little bit of lady luck. And when it's a 5th foul for a player as well, and it's a 4th quarter for a player, unless they say something to you, unless they express their discontent in a manner which is not consistent with a family audience on a Saturday afternoon, Bristol. Because
there was a couple in the game today. One where Bell ran away, and it turned out the foul wasn't on him. One where Fletcher ran away. And it's sort of like there's no real difference to that, and again, we don't know. He might have said something like that's very hard to believe, referee, in more choice language. But in real time, you didn't even see what he did you? That was
No, you didn't. And we had this thing many years ago, and we got told, the slap down, the crackdown was visual dissent.
yeah,
And visual dissent is, you can be anything. It can be a brief expression of frustration. It can be a kind of a wrongly cocked snook, to use a really blunt a phrase. It can be none of the Americans, if any of the Americans watch this, none of them understand.
No.
It could be just almost a raised eyebrow or whatever, and I didn't like it. It's like if that's going to be the case, right? You're going to take everybody up.
Yeah.
But there's a room to turn around and look the other way.
Yeah. The other thing in situations like this, I don't want to kill the referees for one decision. The other thing in situations like this is it's never greatly clear to me, and certainly when I saw the reaction on the replay, as to how do we know he's not just frustrated that he's committed a foul in that situation rather than disagreeing with the call.
It's very difficult to assess an intent. And then again, to be honest, if the visual dissent thing is they're showing they're showing the referees up, that's why you're getting the technical. I'm like, okay, so one, is the referee being shown up? Two, does the referee care? Three, was it the intent of the player to show the referee up? Now you have to have all of those three.
And did anybody see it?
And four, did anybody see it? So you have to have all of those things in play, from my view, and they all have to be positives before you can give a technical. I don't think that's necessarily the way that it's viewed. Anyway, moving on. Again, that's with the overall caveat that we weren't there, so we don't know.
Yeah, so we don't know. 9 minutes to go, 10-point game. King and Miller then scored all of Bristol's points in a 17-4 run. The last 11 of them were unanswered to cut the game to 69-66. And you're thinking, this is going to be interesting here.
Yeah, and I've talked about feast or famine, but they're also the absolute epitome of a hot hand team.
Yeah,
Bristol. Whether it's Watson, Gale, or in this case it was Miller in particular. Miller was kind of getting into the Manchester playoffs last year, whereby you think every time he touches the ball he's going to make a play, because he hasn't really been that impactful the last couple of games. And when he gets the ball, he can go on streaks. So they're kind of carried by their streaks and their energy and their defense, And it did. The other thing was, halfway through the fourth quarter, Austin wasn't in the game. And I think Austin came out towards the beginning of the fourth quarter for a break, which is always a gamble, because you never know when the game's going to stop to get them back in.
Yeah.
And I thought Cheshire went on a bit of a drought without him in the game, and he didn't get back into like the 4-minute mark.
Yeah,
I was just to hate taking guys out in the fourth quarter. It just I mean, you might be, if you're one of my best guys, best players, I need you in the game to win, and need you to win the game. Then the game goes so fast that the rest that you get for a minute, 2 minutes in the fourth quarter, I prefer you found a way of getting that rest on the court, or we move you to guard somebody else, or maybe off the ball or something like that, and we just keep you in the game because you can make plays. And because the dirty secret is that players don't play 40 minutes at full tilt in the BBL. Players don't play 40 minutes at full tilt basically anywhere apart from international basketball, from what I can see. They're all making sure that they're ready to go at the end. They all understand when game time is. And so, having him off the court, I thought they lost a bit of momentum offensively, and Bristol gained a little bit back. And the advantage of having Austin on the court is you're always a risk to go the other way and get a cheap offensive rebound. And the amount of time Cheshire being carried to wins with him, with the kind of offensive rebounding or cheap steals and stuff like that, that was a loss to them. So and then Cheshire kind of got close, but never really close enough.
So Neighbour turn around 69-68, 3 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go, King goes 1 of 2 from free throws, 70-68. Cheshire almost turned it over. Somehow Neighbour kept possession, and then because of the scrambling defense, Evans was open under the basket. Neighbour found him, tied the game at 70 points apiece, 1:44 to go. Bell with a big shot on the shot clock buzzer.
That was a play, wasn't it? I mean, that was kind of a little, I don't know how to describe that shot. I mean, they moved the ball around. Cheshire played excellent D, and Bell kind of lefty, flippy, floatery, 8-footer off the wrong foot with half a second on the shot clock. That's the type of shot, if you're standing there watching it, that you think, oh, not our night.
Yeah. So that's 72-70 with 119 to go. Neighbour missed a three, and there was a foul on the rebound. Watson Gale made both free throws, 74-70 with 102 to go. Evans drove to the basket, missed. Flyers rebound.
I thought he was fouled.
Did you?
I thought he was fouled. I thought he got a hip check. I thought there were two calls, neither of which were made actually, so they balance each other out. I watched it back straight away because when a player ends up going off at a kind of a 55-degree angle on a layup, and he's on one of those straight line drives from the 45-degree line. I thought Cheshire a bit unlucky not to get that call. But anyway, yeah. So the ball comes
so they're running the clock down a little bit. Watson Gale misses a three. Bell with the rebound. No quick foul from Cheshire, which I was a little surprised about. But then I'm guessing this is where you thought the other foul was. Anderson forcing a turnover and Evans away on the fast break for an and one.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely. I thought that was a foul. I thought it was pretty egregious. It was a reach from behind. You've got to be really, really clean to get the ball. And the reality of it is, when you're reaching down and you're swiping down from behind, it's generally always going to be a foul. Because to get at the ball, you've got to go through the wrist. Whereas if you're swimming kind of in almost a round arm cricket bowling motion, kind of an underarm kind of motion, and you're going under the guy's arm, then that's when you can flick the ball from underneath, and the ball goes, and you can go the other way. And Anderson came down from the top, and I thought it was a clear foul. But maybe those things even themselves out. I suppose he gets his layup and
converts the and one, 74-73, 16.4 seconds to go. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So then they foul immediately. King makes two free throws, 76-73, 15.7 seconds to go. Timeout, no advance of the ball.
Yeah.
And then they guarded it pretty well, I thought. Neighbour got a contested three and fell short. King with the rebound.
Yeah, it was little things, and this is the thing, to play winning basketball. Ultimately, it's not about what you can do with the ball in your hands. It's about how you can operate with what's in your head. And they ran a down screen for Will Neighbour to come up to pop to the top of the key, and Mike Miller sniffed it out. And Mike Miller did exactly what he was meant to do, which was stay right on the body of Will Neighbour. So Mike Miller switched. Well, I don't know if Del Pesce or whoever it was calling him to switch, but he took it upon himself to switch because he knew what was coming. He knew you're up three. He knew he sees Will Neighbour coming up from the baseline. He knows there's going to be a down screen set, and he doesn't bother about his man. He stays with Neighbour, and he blankets him, and you have to guard Neighbour like he's a guard because you have to get into his shooting motions. You have to get right up into him to prevent him from getting into that point whereby he can get the basketball up over his head, because at that point, he's probably a 50% shot to make it. So I thought that was a great bit of defense from Miller, and that's the type of winning play that means you win close games. We see the breakdowns all the time doing this. We see the times when those plays aren't made, when Del Pesce and Miller kind of follow their men and they don't communicate properly. Neighbour pops out and makes a three, and everyone goes, "Way, fantastic!" But in reality, it's just bad defense. That was an example of really, really good defense when it mattered, and those are things that win games.
And it did. King then made a couple of free throws. That was basically it. King finished with 32 points and 11 rebounds. He was 9 of 13 from the floor and 10 of 13 from the free throw line. His best game this season. Miller had 14, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Ollison and Bell both had 10. Evans had 19. Jack had 19, 8 of 13 shooting for him. And Anderson, 13, led Cheshire. Bristol, by the way, 4 offensive rebounds, no second chance points, but shot 50% from the floor and 9 of 19 from 3. Cheshire, 8 offensive rebounds, 9 second shot points, but shot 42% from the floor and 5 of 20 from 3. It's almost like making the first shot is more important than offensive rebounds. Who knew?
And here's a hill I've already died on.
I'm dying on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, look, King is a ceiling raiser for them if he can play at that higher level, because he's got a good pedigree. He's got a great BBL body. He's clearly got the game whereby he can knock down. He can get any shot he wants. So the question is he going to be able to kind of remain focused, and is Andreas going to be able to continue to use him the right way? Because he's a matchup problem for everybody. And previously, up until this point, it's been Bell, but Bell gets hurt, and so they have to find a slightly different way of playing. Now he has to work his way back in. That then offers King more opportunity to work at the top of the key and to come off the dribble handoffs. And so suddenly his game gets going. So now they've got to work on getting the King and Bell show going together, Hey, they're still winning games, so who cares?
Yeah. Okay, so public service announcement, people. If you are training right now, it's a good time to grab that protein shake, or if you're running one of those gel sachets. If you're playing the drinking game, charge your glasses right now, because we are going to Newcastle Eagles 79, Plymouth City Patriots 95. Hamlet was in the States. His partner's about to have a baby. Shelton was
Had
listed,
it, apparently.
I had it. Okay, that's good. Congratulations to them.
Yeah.
Shelton was listed but didn't play, and Dave and Jeff were speculating he must be injured. Defoe obviously was back. No Simons.
Injured in the warm-up.
Yeah. Oh, did he?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He looked like he was dunking.
Oh, he looked like he was injured in the warm-up. Yeah. So Dusha open 3, drink. Brandon as well, and after 2.5 minutes, it's 12 points to 3 to the Patriots.
Like everything, look at the whole picture. The whole picture is Newcastle beaten Plymouth twice already. One's the sneaky one in the cup, and the second one on TV where Plymouth lost the discipline and probably would think that they gave away a chance to win the game. Newcastle haven't played for 2 weeks. Hamlet's back in America, and Hamlet's probably been the shining light over the course of the season. Plymouth played on Sunday, albeit not particularly well, against Sheffield, but they've had the benefit of continuing to play, but they're down on bodies. In reality, they've only got 6 BBL players, and they've got Lanny Pukin and Keita, who are rookies who aren't playing much. But they've got 6 guys who really know the roles that they're playing and have had the opportunity to kind of cement those roles. So that's kind of the mitigation. That's the background to it all. Plymouth were really good in this game, because it's easy to kind of lambast the home team and just forget that there's 2 teams make a game. And they were far more under control than they had been in previous games that I've seen, virtually any of them. And they were more competitive throughout the game than Newcastle. Majorly more competitive. More, whether you use the phrase locked in or whether you use the phrase the physical or just attached to the game, they were just miles ahead. And the fact that they were only up by 8 at halftime was amazing. The fact that it was actually close halfway through the third quarter, to me was like, whoa, I was amazed. Newcastle were pretty awful. That's probably the fairest way I can put it. And that's not everybody, because it never is. Always people say, oh, they were rubbish today and they were good. It's generally a lot more combinations of that. There's combinations of players going on. But the starting of the game, for a team that hadn't played for 2 weeks, got no issues with health, had the opportunity to practice together. Who's been complaining that we haven't been together enough? That's been the talk. Now that they've had that opportunity, and now they're flying out in front of it again, basically 95% full arena. And the first 5 minutes were woeful. And it was woeful because of the defensively. Sometimes you're not going to be able to score, particularly when you're coming back off 2 weeks off and you haven't got your main scorer. You're going to struggle to put the ball in the basket early. It's going to happen. Obviously, Darius wasn't fully right either because he's had his hamstring, and I think they were careful. He didn't start.
No.
The reason he didn't start. So that kind of took away an anchor, a mental anchor for the Eagles as well. But mentally, I was looking at some of the players and they didn't seem there. I'm comparing it to some of the games I've seen around the league. And the one thing that watching around the league this year is that, there's very few, if you're not out there on it, you're not going to be out there long. You know what I mean? There's not many passengers in this league at the moment. There's not many people you think, oh, he's all right, or he's not really doing it, but he's there a little bit. No, you've got to be physically and mentally committed to all of these games, because every game is a battle, and every game is out there to win. And I thought other than Jamel Kennedy, who played a pretty good defense on Antonio Williams when he was guarding him, I thought the rest of the Eagles were vacant early. I thought passive, and you can't be passive, not in this league, not against these teams. And defensive rebounding, in particular in the first quarter, was just immeasurably awful. And if you get a drinking game out of that word,
you see, offensive rebounds was one of the drinks, but you went for lack of defensive rebounds. So I'll take a little sip.
They were awful, and that leads to confidence. And here's the thing: Plymouth, I think, were 15-4 up, and I don't think Antonio Williams had touched the ball. And I'm looking at them thinking, looking at Antonio Williams, thinking, he's loving this. He's so comfortable. He's in a comfort zone immediately. He's not under any pressure. His guys are knocking down shots. The first shot is, Cheshire on a little pin down to the corner, little flare screen in the corner, catch, shoot a three. Well, you played him twice. He's shooting.
Yeah.
The next shot is Brandon in transition, wide open on a three. No proper closeout. Then there's Hassan, and then it got to a nadir halfway through the first quarter when Hassan missed 2 foul shots and got his own rebound on an offensive. He just bounced straight back to him and scored. And at that point, I'm just looking around, and we're seeing no degree of togetherness or continuity or spirit. And that was the most concerning thing, not the skills, not the talent, because they're a talented bunch. They've got players who can play Newcastle, and they just weren't there early on in that game. And to be frank, Plymouth out-hustled them, they outworked them, they out-rebounded them, they outskilled them. And the fact that it was, it was only a 5-point game at the end of the first quarter was because Kennedy scored 5 points in 3 seconds. 5 points in a second. And didn't really get any better in the second quarter.
Well, you mentioned Williams. Eagles got it back to 13-15, and then Williams 3 times. I think they were his first 3 scores to the basket, to the basket, to the basket. 10-0 run. It's back to 12 points. 13-25.
Every time Kennedy wasn't guarding him, he just went. He had no respect for anybody in front of him. He knew he could score. And and the reason I say Kennedy, it's not because Kennedy's 6'6", and Williams is a guy who you don't really want to take the 3-point shot away from, but you do want to take away his pull-up 15-foot jump shot off 2 feet. That's because that's how he uses that to use the threat of getting to the rim and jumping over people.
And anybody who saw the shot at the end of the game today knows that's the shot you want to take away.
That is his shot. Now, the only way you can challenge that shot is with length, and Kennedy's 6'6" and can move his feet, and he has length. And he actually forced in this game Williams into 2 or 3 tough pull-up shots, which he didn't make because of that length. Whenever Williams saw anybody else, but what disappointed me was that there was a lack of any degree of physicality in relation to the help. There were steps slow in relation to the help defense, and the 2 steps slow in relation to defensive rebound. Defensive rebounding. There you go. Drink. And I say they, but we have to look at individuals. Shelton isn't playing. Obviously, there is something going on with Shelton. Goodness knows, but there's something going on. He's on the bench. He's not playing. If he's not going to play, probably better he's not on the bench, to be honest. But that's for the club to sort out, whatever it is. Everett, who is, I think, potentially one of the most talented big guys in the league, was utterly passive in this game. He shot the ball 3 times in 22 minutes. He didn't look at the rim in the first quarter. Caught the ball. There were +4 with him on the court, but he was not impactful at all. He didn't get the ball. He didn't demand the ball. He played with no force of personality at all, and you can't do that in the BBL. You don't have a personality in the BBL. If you're not going to enforce, you're not going to be Taj Green. You do what you do. You're a pro player. You're an American pro player. You're 6'9". You've got skills. You use them. You go out every night and you prove it. And that didn't happen with him. Who else? Cohen looked shell-shocked. Didn't look to shoot the ball. He's a 50, 40, 90 guy in college. He can shoot the basketball. At this point in time, I think once in the game, he dribbled the ball hard left, spun back on easy 12-foot jump shot. He did it once. He shot the ball 4 times in 28 minutes, 30 minutes. That's not enough. They also got a ridiculous technical again. To get to again, running towards the referee after a foul. Just a nonsense technical. A nonsense technical to call. That's not technical.
Yeah. I thought that was a
Chris Todd
strange one.
All season. He's trying to, he's obviously putting his line down there, but he just can't call technicals for that. But that was his frustration at the way he was. He wasn't, he's a point guard in this league, and he has to be able to create a little bit better than he has done, and a little bit be more aggressive. You know, that's his. He can do it because I've seen him do it. So that's a mentality thing. Kennedy comes and goes. He shoots the ball. You know, he's a really good shooter. He's 47% 3-point shooter, but he still turns shots down. And he shot 9 threes in this game, and he probably should have been more. He's playing on the wing. He has to shoot the ball when he's open. Ben Rockford, I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm not sure. I couldn't understand. I couldn't think of how the person I saw play for GB last week could be the same person I saw play for Newcastle on the same gym.
Jeff made a suggestion that there might be some sort of injury issues with him.
I'm fed up with it. I'm sorry. You're on the court and you're playing, or you're not. And if you're not fit to play, you don't play. That's fine. You know, you don't suit up. You get yourself healthy, so you are. Injury, you can't injure your body language.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, you can't.
Yes.
Oh yeah, what's he got? Oh, he's got injured body language. No, he hasn't. You know, he showed, you know, he's playing on the same floor for the same coach.
Yeah.
And he gave 2 diametrically opposite performances. With the GB on last Friday night, he's on the court at the end. He's chasing everybody around. He's all over the court. He's getting steals. He's utterly connected to the game. For that team on Friday night, he was totally disconnected from the game, almost from the warm-ups part. Sometimes read too much into them, but he was disconnected. His defense was awful in relation to chasing around LVC Cheshire and other guys off screens, and he just didn't look like he wanted to be there. I think had Hamlet been playing, I don't think he'd have played the 17 minutes that he did. So what is it? That's a mental thing. So this is what you're looking at when you're losing. You look at who's up for the fight. You know, who's mentally there. Ubiaro, okay, aggressive, doing what Mark brought him in to do. You know, and doing his best. He's a young guy coming into it. Kyle Johnson shot the ball a lot, but you know, at least he showed what he was. That game, he showed that he was a guy. He knows his game. It's only his second game. I'm coming here. I'm a shooter. I'm a scorer. I'm going to shoot the ball. Good for him. He's about the only one I thought to, not because he scored the ball, but because he was certain in his movements. And if he was open, he was going to shoot it. He was going to make plays. I didn't see anybody else who wanted to make plays. So there were holes all over, and Plymouth exploited those holes.
Exploited them, yeah. Well. It was kind of the same pattern all the way through the game. So second quarter, Newcastle got it back to 26-29, and then Williams again led them to another 10-0 run, and it's 26-39, got to 18 points just before halftime, and then Kyle Johnson either side of halftime. Eagles 17-5 run. It's down to 3 once again midway through the third, but this time it was Dusha who pushed them back out, hit 2 3-pointers, and it's double figures. I suppose the one point at which I thought, oh, this might be interesting was Hassan fouling out. He almost sort of fell over and committed the foul with 8:50 to go, and it was I think it was a 10-point game at that point, and you were just thinking they don't have a ton of depth. Hassan, they don't really have a like for like. I mean, is there a like for like replacement for him? No. But Eagles really melted away down the stretch, and actually Plymouth cruised to it.
Firstly, at the beginning of the third quarter, actually Newcastle came out and played with purpose. They got the ball where they wanted to it. Johnson got a mismatch in the post because he's a big guard and scored an easy 10-footer. Everett got a little 15-footer. He looked for his shot. The coach had clearly been absolutely through them at halftime. I could see it in Mark's face. He was walking off at halftime. And there was a degree of bouncing them, and suddenly they were, but it's fake bounce if you can't maintain it. You know, you have to maintain it. And what happened was, and this is why they're so mentally fragile, and it's the one guy I haven't talked about yet, is Donovan Johnson.
Yeah.
Because they weren't, I wouldn't say Plymouth were on the ropes, but the arena was bouncing. It was down to a 2-point game. Johnson gets a steal. He goes down down the court, right hand, hard drive, and I went to the other side of the court, and Brandon, I thought, kind of bumps him off the court, and it's an obvious 2-shot foul. In fact, Paul Watton calls an unsportsmanlike foul on Johnson. And I was expecting to watch it on the TV and come back and say, what the hell was that call? And I come back, I watch it on the TV, and Johnson has literally cleaned him out.
Cleaned him out with his arm, yeah.
Cleaned him out with his arm. You know, with not a basketball play, not a basketball move, not a reason to do it. You know, if he continues with this drive, it's a layup or a foul. But Brandon's not in front of him. And I'm thinking, oh, sorry, Paul, I shouted at you, I was wrong. You know, that's a good call. You can't do that.
Yeah.
and the lack of discipline in that then manifests itself. And that was actually the trigger point for Newcastle's ultimate collapse in this game. And it always comes down to trigger points. Because if you watch that play back, after Johnson gets called for that foul, and obviously there was the last game 2 weeks ago, he got called for a foul, which was never a foul.
Yeah.
At the end of the game, which is a critical offensive foul. He set a great screen, he got nailed up. You see 2 or 3 of the Newcastle players go over to him saying, "Look, it's okay, stay with it," you know, and he's like, "Oh, whatever." That can't happen. You can't have a 30-year-old pro player who's having to have 2 or 3 of his teammates go over to him to try and keep him in the game, keep his head in the game, because he gets a bad call, which wasn't even a bad call. Because what then happens is the very next player down, he commits his 4th foul.
Yeah.
Now that then stuffs up Newcastle's rotations the rest of the way, because Shelton's not playing. Everett's also in foul trouble, and that then impacts the whole game. And also it impacts the equilibrium, the mental equilibrium of the team, who see that Johnson's just took himself out of the game.
Yeah, and it was a dumb foul as well. It was
a dumb foul. It was cheap, dumb foul.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, when you're averaging 4.9999 fouls a game or something close, that's not an outlier.
No.
Right? And that impacts that kind of mentality, that impacts a vulnerable team, a team that's emotionally fragile. That's impact because, to be blunt, Johnson, ever since the moment Johnson picks up his 2nd or 3rd foul, his impact in the game just diminishes.
Yeah.
Even when he's sat on the bench for a while, he comes back, and at the end of the game, you know, Hawthorne took the mickey out of him, basically. I mean, Hawthorne and he was the whole at the end of the game. His head was gone. You can't, that's not winning. In the way the league is at the moment, there aren't enough holes in every team for an individual team to be able to cover up their own holes.
Yeah.
You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the turning point in the game. One, the fact that he decided he had to clothesline Brandon with his left arm. 2, sadly, that the referee got the call right. 3, that he then went and committed an immediately silly foul, which takes the whole wind out of the building, takes himself out of the game, has him sitting on the bench ruminating about how unfair it is, how hardly done to he is, and basically makes him unusable for the rest of the game. And that is a microcosm of his season, and to a certain degree, a microcosm of Newcastle's season. Now, what you say about Hassan is spot on, because that was a chance. I mean, when he's down, they're down. Plymouth are up 10. 9 minutes to go, and you're looking at the 5 that they've got on the court. They played lots of minutes, and you're thinking, well, you know, they've got nothing out of Lanipukin in the game. They've got nothing to cater. So they've got 5 players, basically. PJ is going to run with the rest of the way. And you're thinking, well, this is an opportunity because, you know, the cheap little chippies that Rashad's going to get aren't going to be there. So if Newcastle just absolutely melted away. Melted away. Everett again, you know, he eventually, I think, fouled out and he was passive.
Like you say, Plymouth were just like, they were hooping and hollering. They were just, it was like.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a rodeo show.
Yeah, it was.
At the end, in particular, you know, Newcastle, you know, you know, James Hawthorne, really, really good, really impressed me. You know, I like Bell. I love Bell's bounce. He looks like a kid who's having the time of his life. But Hawthorne, who really was pretty inauspicious when he was at Surrey a few years ago, he's probably playing harder than any player in the league at the moment. You know, he's up for every rebound. He's mentally locked. He's mentally there in every play. He's shooting 90% from the foul line. He's shooting 40% from the 3-point line. He's a physical presence. He's up for every rebound. I thought he was exceptional in this game, and without him, he helps carry them. But you have to make the opposition uncomfortable to get close. And you know, when Antonio Williams goes for 22, 9 and 9, doesn't lose his temper the whole game. Plays with it. He plays with the utmost confidence, and basically does nothing that makes you think, oh, isn't he good? You know, when he comes up with 22, 9 and 9. Then the comfort level's there. Well, Newcastle's over. They need to get ready. They need to decide if they've got any pride to play for a start. Some of them. They need then to probably simplify their offense, because at the moment they're overpassing considerably often, and they've got something in Kyle Johnson. I think he'll be an excellent 6th man coming off the bench as a scorer. when Hamlet comes back. The problem is that they've got to find a role for Mockford. Mockford's got to find a role that he wants, because that makes him the fourth guard. They've got to determine, what's going on with Shelton, and also, they've got to figure out whether Johnson is ever going to get any better not in relation to his play, because he can play.
Staying on the court.
But he has to stay on the court, and he has to be able to play with a degree of, and he has to be reliable for his teammates. His teammates have to know that he's going to be there when they need him. And at that point, they don't. So talked a lot about Newcastle for those Jim Bunnies. Sorry. But I don't want to take anything away from Plymouth. All the kind of the criticisms that have been adopted that I've certainly put to them recently, they handled it. Apart from Dusha getting a cheap technical for something he said, they were in control. They played hard. They were aggressive. They rebounded the ball. They got the shots where they wanted to get the shots. They knew their game. And they were by many, many miles the better team.
This was one where the final score represented the game, and actually sometimes it didn't look like it was going to. So Newcastle were led by 25 points and 7 rebounds from Kyle Johnson. Kennedy had 17.7 rebounds. Defoe 11 points. 22 of 70 field goal shooting. 5 of 24 from 3-point range. Newcastle. Dusha had 22 points, 8 of 11 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3-point range, 9 assists. Williams nearly a triple-double, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. Hassan did all his work in the first half, 7 of 7 shooting, 15 points. And just by comparison, they were 59% from field goal range, 8 of 21 from 3-point range. They actually were 9 of 18 from free throw. Could have been better. Mind you, Newcastle, I think, missed 9 free throws as well.
Yeah, they shot 29. But I mean, I don't have so much an issue with Newcastle's offense because they're off 2 weeks and haven't got Hamlet playing. I expected it might be hard, but it's not about whether they can put the ball in the basket. That team at the moment, that team, it's about their mentality, and whether they're in it to compete, and whether they're in it, to be professional and turn up every night with their hard hats on, to use a horrendous American phrase, and ready to battle. Because I didn't see that from a number of players in that game, and ultimately, you're a professional basketball player, and you're paid on the Friday night to go out there and give your all, and give your all in a smart and connected way. And I think Mark's going to have to get to the point whereby he figures out who his guys are going to do that, and the ones who aren't, and the ones who aren't going to play. That's Flanoy's way. That's
he
ain't playing, you're not playing. You've had your chances. You proved to me what you need to do. But that the reality is they've lost last 2 home games against Surrey and Plymouth. Now they're the 2 teams, 2 of probably the 4 teams in this league that your home games you should be beating, because 1, they've got the longest trips on a Friday night. 2, their records aren't great, and Plymouth, as you said, down with basically 6 BBL players. Surrey had lots of injuries as well. And the question comes, if you're not going to beat those guys at home, who are you going to beat?
Yeah.
Who are you? If you look around the poker table, you can't find the person to pick on. Who is it? It's you. So they're going to come and think, so who are you going to beat? Yeah. I don't play poker. No.
And breathe. Let's move on.
Yes.
Sky Sports game on Friday night. Leicester Riders 71, Sheffield Sharks 58. A debut for Aaron Menzies for Leicester. Bennett cooking early on. 8 of Sheffield's first 10 points as they led 10-6. But as soon as he sat down, the offense stopped for Sheffield.
Yeah, this is the problem. The way of playing that they've got at the moment is that obviously they're playing a lot through Bennett Cook, and Bennett Cook is probably exceeding expectations in relation to the way that he's demanding the ball. He's and to be honest, he was the first centre I've probably remember in the last 2.5 years, outplaying Darian Nelson-Henry. In the beginning of this game, he outplayed. You said they were going at each other, but Cook was winning.
Yeah, he was.
Cook was winning. And that hasn't happened. Nelson-Henry is normally the guy who wins those matchups. And watching him do that was kind of fun to watch. It was good, but it kind of, that was their only kind of advantage offensively, and so they just went to it. And what was clear was, when everything went through him, it's either a made layup or Leicester are getting a rebound that's going the other way. And then you look at everybody else, and they're not touching the ball much. The ball's not moving. So when he played, he took out his 5 minutes, he came out the game. Their offense basically disappeared.
Stopped, yeah.
I think I would have kept him going.
He looked shattered. He did look shattered.
It's 5 minutes.
I know, but he's banging. These big men are banging against each other at either end of the floor.
Man,
he looked knackered.
He's scoring every time down.
Yeah.
Give him a couple more anyway.
Yeah.
And see, but then again, they've got a little bit of depth as well. That's positions. Yeah. I understand that. But what it meant was that they have to change very different, because you can't throw the ball to Delpesh the way that you throw the ball to Cook. Yeah. So they have to change. And when they went to kind of plan B didn't work.
No.
In the meantime, Leicester again was kind of the same, because their plan A weren't great. And that was primarily about, what they're going to do with Thornton. Thornton picked up 2 fouls early, didn't play the rest of the first half, didn't appear really to be in sync with the other guys. Nelson Henry's not really touching the ball the same places as he was. And so Leicester's plan A, in relation to the way that they've always done, didn't really figure as well. But Leicester have always had the plan B of the game changers. And in this case, it was Mackenzie and Washington, who were able to come in and kind of kickstart their offense. Mackenzie in particular.
So Leicester had a 12-0 run, started and finished by threes from Whelan and Washington. Actually, Sheffield's next score was in the second quarter, 8:39 on the clock, 7 minutes later from when Cook had sat down. It was actually him again. He came back and made a couple of free throws to get the scoreboard ticking. He had 12 of their first 14 points. But to be fair, it was a defensive game. Neither team were able to really get their offense going.
Yeah, well, and they are both attritional teams to a lesser degree. Leicester, Sheffield are extreme. Sheffield maybe as attritional a team as we've seen in the league in a number of years. And what I mean by
since Sheffield a number of years ago, probably.
Yeah, since Sheffield. No. What I mean by attritional is, isn't that they're playing good defense because they're getting across every screen, they're covering each other, they're helping each other. That's not attritional is when you're playing good defense, but you're not scoring off that defense. You're pushing you're getting your stops, but your defense is positional. It's not about getting down the other, getting steals. It's about taking the space away, rebounding the ball well, and then throwing it to your point guard and walking the ball up the court. That is their modus operandi at the moment. And then we're going to make enough shots, and we're going to be precise enough in the half court that ultimately you get into a half court game with us, we're going to be better at it than you are, and we're going to beat you. That's fine. It's a perfectly legitimate way to win. The difficulty is that Leicester are kind of masters at that game. Now they can go either way, because Leicester tend to score a little bit more off their offense, off their own defense, to get down the court a little bit more. And also, they're a little bit more precise in the half-court sets because the guys have been running it longer. So people like Washington, and in this case, it was Mackenzie coming off that curl to the left corner, one dribble, pull up 15-footer. He made it 3 times. It's just repetition, And then, you forget about Patrick Whelan and he steps into a 3-point shot in transition. Now, Sheffield haven't really got anybody at this point who is overly comfortable within what they're doing and stepping into a 3-point shot in transition. Banks is kind of pull up jump shooter. Nelson's kind of a manipulator. He gets, he gets to his spots as opposed just to shooting the basketball. And Glasgow is more of a kind of catch and shoot guy at the moment, the occasional 15-footer off a dribble if you go under. And that meant that Leicester had more spurt ability than Sheffield, and they were able to keep scoring. And fundamentally, Whelan, Loving, and Jackson are a little bit better offensively in creating stuff than Nichols, Banks, and Ritino. Those 3 guys, they're playing against each other at those spots, and whereas Nicholas, Banks, and Ritino require ball movement and people to create shots for them. those other guys are a little bit sharper and a little bit more capable of rising up and making a tough shot. And I thought that's kind of what happened, because once once Coke kind of couldn't score, then Sheffield are really having to work hard for every point, as are Leicester. But it's tough to do that to Leicester for 4 quarters and they only 3.
Yeah, it was at the start of fourth quarter. Leicester went on an 11-2 run, Loving, Mackenzie, Jackson all scoring, and that pulled them away. I thought the bench unit for Leicester were excellent, particularly defensively, and you can always tell how well the bench unit is doing by dint of when the starters come back in the fourth quarter. And actually, it wasn't really until about the 5th minute, I think, that Rob went back to the starters, because he was happy with what was going on out there.
Well, they're probably the most complete bench unit in the league, insofar as they're a unit that's used to playing with each other. And not many teams in this league have that, because generally the teams are quite new. Virtually every team's new, and if you do have returning players, they're mostly going to be starters, because that's why they're returning. Players rarely want to return to come off the bench unless you've got veterans who are, to use Popovich's phrase, have got over themselves, and don't care. But we had that I had that a couple of years with Lasker and Charles and Fab and those guys. They didn't care, but they'd seen it. They weren't.
That's a drink as well. That was a write-in drink from Rob Hunt, I think.
What was that? Who?
You referring back to old Newcastle players?
Oh, well, yeah, I've got to. It's all I know. Come on. I mean, you can't. At the end of the day, if I don't know, if I'd been in charge of Sheffield, I've been around Sheffield, I'd talk about those players. But also that was, that's the advantage we had. We had a massive advantage. Who are starting quality players who are bought in to come off the bench. And virtually no other teams in this league do. In fact, none do, apart from Leicester. So on that basis, their bench should be better. But they are altogether. Now they're actually going to be hurt a little bit by Menzies did fine. He showed what he is, I think, which is a big body, a good defensive rebounder. Probably not a post-up guy, I don't think. Maybe a little bit of post-up, but nothing like they had got from Walker. So it's going to change a little bit. He's going to be at the kind of the 15 minutes a game mark. There's some games he's going to be impactful. There's some games he's not. Of course, they have this kind of get out of jail card with Adekoya. As a third centre, and I think you're going to see him playing as a third centre a lot more as the season goes on. Now that Walker's not there,
he was excellent. By the way,
he was good. I mean, he's the guy. If he makes the shot, you kind of live with it. But defensively and mindset wise, he's always there. He's locked in and he's physical. We need. I'm giving up now. We need YouTube replays. We need instant replays, EuroLeague replays. That was an unsportsmanlike foul on Washington.
Yeah, to be fair, in real time, I didn't think so. In the first replay, I didn't think so. Then when I saw the baseline camera, I was like, "Oh, I think that's an unsportsmanlike."
Did you know?
Yeah, it was. It was jiu-jitsu. Sullivan probably taught him it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm looking at him thinking, there was a couple last week as well, and obviously the one with a couple last week whereby in the GB game we talked about the one at the end. And I'm like, I can stop that. Press my space bar, press my back out, and watch it again immediately.
Yeah.
Right? That's every venue in this league has Wi-Fi, otherwise they wouldn't be broadcasting it, right? Why can't the referee do that? If it's on specific rules, on sportsmanlike fouls in particular, why can't the ref just look at that and say, let me have a look at that camera? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I find that troublesome now. I think there's not a reason why we can't. Having just seen a one-footed knee rule out an Ecuador goal for offside in the first start of the World Cup. Seeing something like that happening, not having a referee have the opportunity to watch what all the people on YouTube are watching seems nuts to me. Anyway, they broke away in this game because unfortunately, and Natiba said it at the end of his interview, we have to make some shots. And it is their limiting factor. They have to make some shots, and outside of Cook and Oganyemi, I think maybe injured because he's not playing much. They're going to need something from Glasgow. They're going to need more points from Glasgow, I think, in the backcourt because they really don't have another guard outside of him and Nelson. The rest of are wings. And Glasgow's going through a bit of a difficult period with the scoring at the moment.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So Sheffield did get it back to 4 with 5 to go, 58-54, but Jackson and Whelan made threes and the game was safe. 13 probably a little harsh on Sheffield, given their performance. But well, we've talked at the time about Leicester's defence not quite being where it has been in the past, but the 60 points. Rob, I just enjoyed the fact that Rob called out Rowe in the post-game interview. That was the highlight. Yeah. But
you see, these coaches, I know I remember, we love it when people say nice things about us. You don't love it when people say things which might be getting a little bit too close to the real truth. And the reality. But to be honest, that I'm not even sure that was I'm not even sure it was a great defensive game. It was two really solid teams who played each other already, who were, locked. There was nobody on the court who didn't need to be on the court. There was no one to pick on, to use a phrase, and there was very little transition basketball. And so defensively, Leicester be delighted that they held Sheffield at 58, but points held to is not a good. Has never been the metric I use for.
No, because it's about pace, and Sheffield play at such a slow pace, and so many times they get to 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're looking at a shot then. So
also it comes down to players who's on the court for you, because they've had difficulties when, for instance, when Leicester have been down a few bodies and they've had to give probably Bowman a few more minutes than they would expect at this time, and was some minutes and that type of stuff. And those guys aren't as good defensively as the other guys, and therefore the game changes a little bit, and the whole unit changes. But when you can play Adekoya for most of the minutes in the fourth quarter, then your defense is going to be better. No question, it's a question of who's playing when and how do they fit together. But to beat Leicester, you have to make shots. You always have to make shots. Glasgow beat them because Sloan scored 36. He made shots.
Jackson with 17 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Loving 15 points, 5 rebounds. Whelan 13 points. They were all 50% or better field goal shooting percentage. Mackenzie was 5 of 5 shooting.
He missed one actually. That's a bad stat because I was watching this game back afterwards, knowing that he was 5 of 5, and he missed his first shot.
Did he?
Did from the left wing, in front of you in the first quarter.
I don't remember that. Why isn't it on the stats?
I don't know. Somebody else has got a missed shot they shouldn't have.
Oh, right.
You watch it, but he did. I was surprised. I think, how do you? Well, that one's going in. No, it's not. Yeah.
Well, he had 11 points. And Menzies, we talked about, looked all right. 4 points, 5 rebounds, 1 block, a few change shots in 10.5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Just what you'd want from him. Not much more, not much less. As I say, I think he's going to be a useful piece. I don't think he's going to necessarily take him over the top, and he's got Walker. I don't think he's going to be as impactful as Walker, but they'll change the way they play as a result. So I don't think it'll be that much difference. This year with Leicester with Thornton, they've got to figure out Thornton. Because
you talked about this not being a transition game. He's their most transitional player. Yeah, because he had 20 something against Sheffield in the away game.
Yeah. But the issue is ultimately, sometimes you want your transition players in the games that aren't transition games because you want to make them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he got 2 fouls early, never got in the rhythm of the game, and he shot a couple of those kind of Leicester no kind of early in the shot clock kind of long twos. Which immediately makes me look at that bench. So that's kind of the shots that other guys that haven't lasted at Leicester have kind of shot, like Burnett going back a while and kind of thing, and the kid Heron who came in halfway through the season, Jackson, got injured. The more individualistic shots in the half court, because the rest of them are so grooved in what they do. They're so good in getting the shot and knowing where the shots are coming from. They don't want to they don't want to lose that. So he's going to have to figure it out quite quickly, because he does give them something, but he can only give them something if he's on the court. And you only get on the court if the coach is happy with them, making them better on the court.
Only 11 turnovers, only 2 in the second half as well. That was another key thing. They looked after the ball well after halftime. Cook, who had 12 of the first 14 points for Sheffield, finished with 12. Banks shot well for 11 points. Nichols, 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. So from one defensive game featuring Sheffield to another defensive game featuring Sheffield on Saturday night. Surrey Scorchers 54, Sheffield Sharks 60. Still no Ray or Steele, and obviously Teo and Lawrence as well. Ogniemi was dressed but didn't play. I believe he's injured in some way, and that was why. Probably the best bit of offense was at the start, wasn't it? Sheffield had 14 points in 6 minutes, jumped out to a lead, and then Scorchers had a bit of a run of 8 in a row, and we were at the heady days of 13-14.
Yeah, this was tough. This was really, really tough watch. Whereas the last night's game, you know, they were in Leicester and Sheffield.
Not helped, by the way, by no score or no clock. I know there wasn't very many points, but it was we probably could have counted them.
It made it easier to keep the score in your head, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. This was kind of watching Matt Hancock in the jungle. You know, this was like really, really tough. But I did watch this, and I don't watch him, so I don't know what to say really. Surrey still only got half a team in reality, albeit they're a little bit better with Taylor and Martin. Obviously, they're still missing Jalen Ray, who's a wing shooter. They're still missing Teo. They're missing Josh Steele. These are all solid BBL players, you know. Sheffield are not obviously without Ogniemi playing the same way, and Sheffield have decided what they are, and that's great. You know, I actually have an admiration for the way that they're playing.
Same, yeah. It's nice to see something different, isn't it? And seeing it being actually quite effective.
It is. I think they're probably one. There might be kind of an Antoine Johnson or someone like they had last year who came in and shot the ball a lot and gave them bursts of scoring.
Yeah,
that kind of guy, short of getting to where they need to. But they're 6-2 the last 8 games. Yeah. So, you know, on that basis, they have.
And the 2 are against Leicester.
Yeah, and on that basis, they're up there with, you know, Bristol and London and Leicester. You know, they have to be. But obviously they're 6-6, so they've still got some fighting to do to get to that point. I thought it was just really. I didn't think the defense was either team's defense was as good as the game.
No.
I thought the offensive execution was pretty sloppy, if I'm honest. Both ways, you kind of understand that with Sheffield. They played a hard game the night before. Surrey haven't played for a couple of weeks, so you know that could be their excuse. But my overriding thought through as the game was progressing was that I couldn't see Surrey winning because this was Sheffield's game. This was And you're hoping from Surrey's perspective that, you know, that someone might just get it going. You know, that maybe Quincy goes off, but they guarded him really well. They didn't give him the open easy 18-footer off the screen. Wang, you know, played like a bit of a rookie in that. You know, had a great game at Newcastle when they won the game, and he had a down game. And he was being guarded a little bit differently. And probably the other thing about them was the game, I thought, turned on Ryan Martin, who was real curate's egg. Very, very, you know, made some big shots in which they need in the 54 point. He only scored 54, so he needed some shots. But he also had some awful turnovers. You know, and he probably, I think, had 5 turnovers and 2 or 3 early shots in the shot clock. And particularly the turnovers, which allowed run-outs at the other end in a 60-54 game. You know, they're brutal. And they weren't bad turnovers because it was just because he was going a bit early, or he wasn't in the flow of the system, and he was attacking gaps where there weren't gaps and that type of thing, when the ball needed to move a bit more. So, you know, he kind of brought them a lot and also hurt them a little bit. And this is only a second game, so that's kind of the risk that you take when you bring somebody in. I thought those players, they're always far more important in 5-point games, which finish at 60. Yeah.
28-27 at halftime, lowest scoring first half since January 2021, which was 26-21. Rocks against Sharks, which I don't remember, but I think it was
probably a good reason why you don't remember.
21. So let's just go to the end. Let's just go to the end. So Martin makes a 3 with 2:45 to go to make it a 1-point game, 52-53. Nelson then makes a couple of free throws, 2:22 to go, 52-53. 55. Martin and Banks then both miss 3-pointers at either end, but Cooker offensive rebound. Glasgow 15-footer, 5-point game, 1:36 to go.
Yeah, you just got the impression that Sheffield would be more comfortable because they'd been in these games. Rod Glasgow knocked down his shot. He hadn't had that look very often in the game. He was able to get to his spot. He knocked it down. And Sheffield are confident in their defense and their ability to get stops at the end. And getting stops at the end wins games on the road.
Yeah, Wang missed a 3. Scorchers got it back with a good steal from Boban, but then Taylor missed a close range 1, and then Nelson 2 free throws, 7-point game, which at 52-59 is basically done.
Yeah. It was just like Atiba drew it up.
Yeah. They did miss a few free throws in the last minute, Sheffield, just to keep Surrey's interest, but it never quite looked like they were going to get close enough. Taylor led the way for Surrey with 12 points off 14 shots, 4 assists. Martin 12 and 7 rebounds. Wang 2 of 13 for 11 points. And 9 rebounds. They were 4 of 21 from 3-point range as a team. Nelson had 13 points and 7 rebounds. Banks had 15 points from 16 shots and 8 rebounds. Yeah, Rotino was 12 and 6. Cook had double 10 and 10. Neither team scored 20 points in any of the quarters, which is only the 12th time since 2009 that's happened in a game. It's the second time it's happened this season for the Sharks. The other one was against Newcastle. The last 5 times it's happened were all Sheffield, and 7 of the 12 times that it's happened since 2009 were all Sheffield. Shout out Dave Fevs for noticing that and making me look it up. Oh, and a scoregami as well, which doesn't happen very often in the BBL.
No.
WBBL, it's every weekend, but in the BBL, it's bigger sample size. So let's move to this afternoon's game. Plymouth City Patriots 103, Manchester Giants 96. Still no Simons for Patriots. Obviously, William Lee is out for Manchester. A couple of early fouls for Dirk Williams, I thought really hampered him in this game, but it was an absolute shootout in the beginning. Fletcher hitting threes. Giants were out to an 8-point lead, 27 points after 7 minutes. It was just, they were gunning both teams.
Yeah, they were. It was the absolute antithesis.
Yeah.
Just not just on the scoreboard, but just in the mentality. The first thing I noticed in the game was that Fletcher's in shape, and he looked. He's had 3 weeks off, and he looks like he's really ready to go. To be honest,
well, they've been off for so long. I forgot the Giants were still in the league. To be honest with you.
And he came out and he knocked down threes, and he just looked like, okay, here we are. This is us now, really leading his team. And we do sometimes forget. He's his 8th year in the league, 8th or 9th year, still coming out and playing like that. The level of internal motivation that takes is just incredible. To continue to prove to people, to continue to do it time after time after time. And he kind of did take the first 7 minutes of that game by the throat, because balls flying around, Manchester are flying around. They've got they had Corey Johnson in the starting lineup instead of William Lee, which probably makes him even more difficult to guard because someone's got to guard the shooter. Then Robertson moves to the 4 so he can kind of crash the glass and attack the rim. And Plymouth are better offensively than they are defensively. There's no question about that. But Manchester's defense is not good either. No. They're playing at such speed that their transition defense at times let them down, and Plymouth can get out and run. And also, even in the half court, I was surprised they didn't play a bit more zone, to be honest, because I thought they were really struggling to guard Plymouth in the half court. And Plymouth are an example of that early season thing whereby you don't need 10 players, you need 6 good ones who know what they're doing, who are playing with each other, who are in rhythm. If you've got 7, it's great, right? But if you've got 6 and they're good, then you can ride that for a month. And you can ride that for 6 weeks. Someone's going to get hurt eventually, and it's going to be tough. But those 6 guys at the moment are just ever so comfortable. They all know they're going to play. They've all got their minutes. They've all got their shots. They're all getting the opportunity, and it's on them. And often fans think, oh, we need another guy here. We need 10 players. We need a deeper bench and all that stuff. Often all that does is give players an excuse why it's somebody else's fault why we're not winning, and because they're not playing, or coach ain't playing me enough, or I've got the wrong matchup or something. Those 6 Plymouth guys, LVC knows he has to shoot. So they haven't got enough scoring if he doesn't. So he's coming out and he's gunning away, and he's playing great basketball. And that means that Antonio Williams doesn't have to be he's dribbling the ball half the amount that he dribbled the ball last season.
Yeah.
No, he's picking his spots far smarter, and that makes them a more dangerous team again, because you can't kind of just load up on them. So this was just an example of our favourite stat.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It was a shootout. It was a shootout.
I mean, I thought Hawthorn and
Shootout.
Brandon were really good for them as well. Giants got in a bit of foul trouble in the second quarter, and there was a 14-4 run, 53-42. So, but even with Plymouth up 11 at that point, I was thinking, yeah, but Giants normally win in a scoring race. Giants normally win, and then Antonio Williams gets his third foul on a technical, and you sort of go, ooh, that can they keep that going with him in that sort of on the bench there, and then what happens later on we'll get to.
Yeah, it was a mirror image of Friday night. They kept it going without Hassan, and they kept it going without Williams. That's why I say they've got 6. That's all they need. Now, I think if Manchester had 6, they might have had a better chance, because I think when some of Manchester's bench came in, that kind of threw them off a little bit. And and Robertson didn't finish particularly well around the rim at times, and they had some kind of empty possessions with some of the bench guys in the game. And the problem is, when you're playing a 195 game, empty possessions matter. You've got to keep the scoring going. You can't say, oh well, we might have some empty possessions, but we're going to get them back at the other end because we're going to get some stops. We're going to, because that's not happening. You're not getting them, so you've got to be able to maintain your scoring. And I thought Manchester's bench, the depth actually hurt them a little bit. And
Giants did have a 10-0 run just before halftime to tie it up at 53-53. It was 55-53 at halftime, which, bear in mind that Sheffield and Surrey was 54-60 final.
Also a 30-30 first quarter. So
no, well, I didn't get a chance to look it up. I got called out into the garden to sort something out, so I didn't get a chance to look it up.
Sorry, people.
Well, no, it's my wife, so I'll blame her. She doesn't listen to this, so I get away with it. 21 points and 6 assists for Fletcher at halftime. 21 of 53 that they had.
What, they shot 53 or 21 points? I was going to
say.
Yeah. Well, he was just scoring. He was just the thing with Ramon, when he comes out shooting the basketball, you got to be worried. That if he comes out shooting the basketball, makes a couple of threes early, then you really got to be worried, because it means that he's in a mindset of that he's going to take over the game. And I thought he did that. He's actually a really good shooter, but he's never had the rep for being a really good shooter. He doesn't shoot as much as we always wanted him to. And there's times he's been 40% shooting, there's times he's been 29% shooting. And it's generally down to how he's reading the game and how he wants the other guys to get going and all of that stuff. But I always liked it when he came out firing, because it's a tone for everybody else. And he did in this game. And and he must be, assists wise, actually points wise, he must be getting up towards the top 20 or 30 in league history. And assists wise, I think he must be probably top 4 or 5 now.
Yeah, he is. I haven't got it off the top of my head, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. So I'll ask you a question. I'll go look it up. So Williams' offensive foul for a push-off start of the third quarter, but the game carried on the way it was going, just up and down, both teams scoring until the end of the third quarter, when Plymouth scored 8 in a row to lead by 14 going into the fourth.
Someone's going to have to work out a way of defending Dusha and Hassan, because at the moment no one's got a way of doing it. And LVC had 17 assists or something like that in this game, and that's because he's throwing the ball at people who are scoring the ball when he gets it. But he's also combined that with the willingness to knock down shots off the catch. So he's one of those rare players whereby you've basically got to invent a new scouting report on the fly for him. In the past, it was kind of he's going to assess the defense, and now that you've got to run him off. You've got to get up there into him, and you've got to make him dribble, and then you've got to crowd the lane and try and prevent him from throwing the ball out to any of his teammates, and getting particularly from getting the ball to Hassan anywhere in the key because it's an automatic basket. And that's why they're better, because he's playing a bit more. But more importantly, he's playing really well. But B, it takes the ball out of Williams' hands, and Williams is a better player when the ball isn't in his hands all the time, because he's a dynamic offensive player. And Manchester, I'm afraid they didn't appear at any point to have a particular plan for how they were going to guard people. They obviously believe in their offensive talent. They've obviously all got the green light. And if that game's in Manchester, then I'm quite sure they win it. But it's not. It's in Plymouth, and we know the score, we know the rules, and we know the numbers.
So to answer your question, Fletcher is 4th all time in assists. He will go past Ross Saunders into 3rd. Maybe even no, and it'll take him a couple of games, 2 or 3 games to get past Ross Saunders into 3rd. Although then there's a big jump to Nigel Lloyd in 2nd. He's 3,000. I've just gone off it. 3,381 points before today's game. So add another 26 onto that. You have to get to 5,008 to get into the top 20.
Right, so he's got a bit to go, and that's 36 games. That's not 2.5 seasons. We'll see if he's key. But we've had some players who've been in the league a long time, obviously.
Nate Reinking is number 20, 5,008.
That's pretty good. We need to get that in an archive somewhere. We need to be able to see them.
Yeah. So Manchester got themselves back into the game. Lewis 3 makes it 94-89. Fast break Giants with 2 minutes to go. Robertson with the putback 94-91. Then Hawthorne going to the basketball kind of slips out of his hands when it looks like he's about to dunk it. Out of bounds, Giants ball, timeout, and you're thinking, oh, Plymouth are going to give it away here, and all the crowd are up and they're going to give it away at the last minute. A crazy finish from Nick Lewis, minute and a half to go, that little layup.
Interesting that was the line that Vince went with at the end. He went with Nick Lewis and Fletcher.
Well, there was one point where he essentially had 5 guards on court. And then, I think he then brought Robertson in. It wasn't for very long, but there was one point where Robertson was basically the 5.
And at the end, he had Robertson at the 4, and I was and he went with Nick Lewis, and Nick Lewis made a great drive to the rim to get there to 1-point game. And at that point, you're thinking, could they really nick this? But it always favors the home team. Game like that favors the home team.
And this was the point the clock went off. So at about somewhere around 1:15 would be my guess. LVC Dusha hits a 3 to make it 97-93. We were on triple double watch for LVC, but he never looked like he was going to get enough rebounds. And then Green with a tough shot with 50 seconds to go to miss. And then we referenced it in the earlier game, 29 seconds to go. Antonio Williams to that comfortable little 14-foot pull-up that he has, and that was basically the game.
I was a little bit surprised, and at that point they were down 6, and I thought they had to get 2 threes, and I thought there was 30 seconds basically the game, but I was surprised Johnson or Robinson wasn't in the game at that point. It was Fletcher, Williams, Robertson was in the game, and Robertson ended up shooting the ball. Robertson's not the guy you want shooting the ball. When you're down 6 with 30 seconds to go, I've been there. The maths are that you have to get a 3. If you get a 3, then the game is not done. But a 2 is virtually useless because it remains a 2-possession game, and the last 25 seconds. It's different with 55 seconds, but with 30 seconds to go, it has to be a 3. And again, another drinking reference. We go back to the Newcastle game that we lost in the cup quarterfinal against Cheshire, where we threw the ball on the buzzer and OJ made a layup, and we were up 12 with like a minute to go, a minute and a half to go, and we were up 6 with 30 seconds to go, and a little point guard called Rob Sandoval. Very smart guard. He knew that they needed a 3, and he made sure that he got an off-balance fadeaway 3 right in front of me in the right-hand corner and knocked it down. And suddenly it's a 3-point game, and the doubts are there. And so having Robertson in at that point, I thought was a mistake. I thought he should have probably had Johnson or Robinson in the game instead. Not that it would have necessarily made a difference, but it would have helped them extend the game. But no, look, what a weekend for Plymouth.
Yeah, great weekend
What
for
a
Plymouth.
weekend for those guys. I mean, don't underemphasize. It's a long way from Newcastle to Plymouth.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Long
they
way.
just because they're at home doesn't mean they didn't have to make the trip.
They drove back, through the night.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
8 o'clock in the morning, right? That means that your Saturday is basically screwed. Whichever way you look at it, as a pro, you've
Well,
got to find.
Dusha was out coaching the under-16s, according to Paul.
I've seen pro players coaching. Sorry, I'm cynical on that one, but yeah, he were apparently, yeah, and but they've got to do something. But it means players' body clocks are different, and
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
to get right to play. And it's a hell of a thing to come out and put 99 points up, in front of your crowd, and they just seem to be having fun. And I give obviously PJ's PJ. He's never knowing you're going to put an unprepared team on the court ever. And he's smart enough, and he's very, very smart enough to know exactly who needs to be playing and when. But Mark Edric Bell, James Hawthorne, these are unproven guys, right? And they're playing a far larger role than PJ probably was envisaged for them when he signed a team with Joe Hart and Troy Simons in at the beginning of the season. And they're playing, and they are outplaying people. And they're outplaying people with their energy, with their length, and playing hard is a skill. Tony G told us that. Playing hard is a skill. It's not just a thing you can expect. It is a skill. And Dusha and Williams and Hassan are doing what they were brought in to do. But you don't win those games without Hawthorne and Bell flying around and competing, and Brandon just basically being an irritant and knocking down shots. And it's just an incredible weekend for them. Now, as I say, they're probably going to need another body in due course, and because you can ride this wave for so long, but eventually they'll wear down. But just enjoy the wave while you're riding
it. So Hassan with his paint touches, which I think completes the set for
absolutely paint touches.
Our drinking game. 19 and 8. Williams also had 19. Dusha 16 points, 17 assists, ties his career high, and 8 rebounds. They had 6 guys in double figures, Plymouth. Fletcher 26 points and 12 assists. Dirk Williams with 16 points, and Green 14 points and 10 rebounds. So I'll run through the table. I was just trying to quickly check. I did look up earlier when last time Bristol were top of the table. What I do remember was they were tied top 4-1, and it was somewhere around 2017 or 2018. But I've not got it, so I can't be sure about that. But they are top right now with 8 wins and 3 defeats. Second place is London, 7-2. Leicester are third, 7 and 3. Sheffield are currently fourth with 6 wins and 6 defeats. Manchester 5-4. Then it's Plymouth 5-5. Cheshire 5-7. Caledonia 3-5. They and Surrey have played the fewest games. Newcastle 2-7, and Surrey are 1-7.
And we haven't even talked about the fact that we've got another NBA player signed in the league.
Oh yeah, we didn't even pick that up. I'm sure we will next week because he will have played by then.
One hopes so. Yeah, it's weird not to be able to complain about something in London, isn't
it? Yeah. So they are playing. They are playing on against Hamburg on Tuesday night. You may recognise the voice.
Oh, fantastic! So we've got a BT Sport outing, have we?
Well, it's through the usual Euro Cup thing.
Just remind me of the BT Sport Complaints Department email.
I don't know.
Okay, well, no one will look it up, but for anybody listening, we'll tweet it afterwards. Oh, great. No, that's cool. That's good. Yeah, I'll have to. Is there any way I can do a live heckle online?
I'm sure. I'm sure if there is, you'll find. Well, your wife will find it and tell you. It's probably.
Oh, that's great. Well, they're playing at home
in Hamburg,
in Germany.
In Germany, yeah. So, we might even get this out before 10 o'clock at this rate. It might even be before 9 o'clock at this rate. That'd be amazing. So, on that bombshell, me and Dave have got a Sunday night back. Have a great week, everybody. We'll be back next Sunday night to do it all over again. But for now, go on.
I think it's not to play Monopoly.
Enjoy. Have a fabulous week. We'll see you next Sunday. Goodbye.